I was camping with my husband and his family at a small remote lake in New Mexico. There were about 10 people in our group and another group of 6 people at the next campsite. It was nighttime and both groups were doing typical activities, making s'mores, having a few drinks, telling stories, when out of nowhere, we all heard what sounded like a little girl yelling out for help. Neither group had children with them, but we were all positive we were hearing a little girl and decided to search the area the noises were coming from together. There was a field behind our campsite, and we all saw a very tall, pure white figure standing maybe 100 feet away from us in the field, making the noise. We all agreed that the thing was at least 6 feet tall, skinny, and as white as can be. We made our way closer to investigate, but whatever it was that we saw started to back off and disappeared into the trees. All night, we continued to hear a little girl call for help as we tried to sleep. So about a year ago, I was home alone after school, and my mom was at work, which luckily was close by. So my dog and I were sitting in my room, which is downstairs. I was petting her, and then suddenly, I heard a noise of which sounded like footsteps. I didn't think much of it though, since my dog has a bouncy ball which sounds familiar. But then I thought about how the ball could have moved when I was the only one home and me and my dog were in my room. So I went upstairs to check. Her ball was sitting in a corner right where I left it. Then I went back downstairs to my dog. I was feeling a little uneasy, and she seemed nervous too. Then, after a few minutes, I heard it again, this time 2 floors above my room. That was when my dog started to look around, barking. I was starting to get pretty scared, so I went up there to check, but this time with my dog. Nothing visible, but my dog started barking like crazy up the stairs. She was backing up and barking and continued growling at what seemed like nothing. Then, the footstep noise was there again, in what seemed to be like my parents' bedroom. I quickly put a leash on her collar, took my phone and the house keys, which was difficult because my hands were shaking like crazy. I didn't see anyone, but the noise and my dog's reaction made it so real that I started uncontrollably crying. When I was outside, I called my mom, and she came home, which only took about 5 minutes. She calmed me down, and then checked the house. There was no one. We do live in an old big house, and a lot of the windows and doors were pretty old too. We never did anything about it, and to this day, thinking about it still gives me the chills. This happened about 7 years ago. I was 13 years old at the time and sleeping over at my best friend's house. We spent the night gossiping about boys and all that kind of stuff. We ended up going to bed around 12, but I couldn't fall asleep. It wasn't until around 2 a.m. that I finally drifted off to sleep. At 3 a.m., I heard a loud bang and I shot straight up on the couch. My friend looked over at me and asked, "You heard that too, right?" I nodded and tried to calm myself down. Her mother came out of her bedroom to check in on us. She thought one of us had fallen over or banged into something. When she saw us both in bed, she then realized we were also woken up from the noise. She then hurried to the front door. My friend and I looked at each other, scared shitless. Her mom came back upstairs and said something must have fallen somewhere else in the house. So we all went back to sleep. Well, about 20 minutes later, we heard 3 loud knocks as clear as day on the closet door in her bedroom. We jolted right up in bed and stared in horror at the black abyss in the closet. Her mom came running in, turning on the light. We pointed at the closet. She goes to the closet and turns the light on, then says there's nothing in there. As she was walking out of the closet though, she started to scream. She said it felt as if though something had scratched her, and sure enough, there were 3 nail marks on her skin right down her back. My friend and I started to cry, and her mom decided it was best if I went home. My friend moved out of that house shortly after, but I will never forget the sound of that knock. It was a nice autumn night, and my family and I decided to have a campfire. We went outside after it was dark. We began roasting marshmallows and making s'mores and talking around the campfire. The campfire was at the very edge of the woods by our playground, which was quite far from our house since we had a lot of acres. We had spent time outside at night before and everything was alright. But this night, we spent a few hours outside, and then suddenly we heard something in the woods. We heard leaves crunching and a stick break. We thought it was an animal, so we ignored it. We went back to talking, and then we heard it again. It sounded like it was getting closer and closer. The footsteps didn't sound like an animal, and instead, it sounded like a human. Then, we heard someone cough in the woods. My family and I all stood there in silence because we were freaked out. We shined our flashlights into the woods to see who or what was there. We saw a dark figure hiding behind a tree. They were watching us. We left everything at the campsite and ran as fast as we could back home. Once we were inside our house, we locked all the doors and windows. My family and I thought that the person watching us this time was the same person who was following me and my sister a while back while we were hiking. We were all scared, and still to this day, I have no idea who that was watching us or what they would have done if we hadn't have ran. After this, we never had a campfire at night ever again, and instead, we did it during the daytime. This just happened within the hour, and I need some advice on what should come of it and what to do. For context, I'm in the basement. I keep my gaming setup down there. I was playing the new My Hero Academia Battle Royale, not important, just thought I'd mention it, when my brother's fiance calls me from upstairs. She sounded a little scared and asked me to come upstairs real quick. I asked her why. She was watching TV with her daughter, my niece, when she looked out the window. There was a man that she had never seen before, just looking at her from over the porch railing. The railing is like 10 feet away from the sidewalk. He had to physically walk up to see her. He ran off as soon as she saw him, and that's when she called me. I armed up with a heavy wrench and this wooden walking stick and headed outside. I searched all around our property, but I didn't see anything. After about 5 minutes, I decided to stop playing hero and go inside. And that's when I heard someone say, "Hello." It scared the shit out of me. I looked around, but I couldn't see anyone. I don't believe in ghosts, and neither does she. I'm convinced it was a person. Any ideas on what the hell that guy was doing? I remember I was once in my house playing the Xbox when I heard my mom call my name. I asked her what's up. She didn't say anything, so I just ignored it. But then she called my name again, so I said what a bit more aggressive this time. And again, she didn't say anything. But something in her voice didn't sound right. I heard some type of monotone sound behind her voice. And her saying my name sounded the exact same, like it was an audio recording on loop. I was about to leave my room when I looked out the window and saw my mom's car was still gone. That's when I realized my mom isn't home yet. She was still all the way in Bel Air. I got scared and I didn't come out of my room. I stayed there until my mom came home a few hours later, and when I told her what happened, she said, "Son, if you hear anybody's voice that sounds familiar, but you're home alone, don't follow the voice. It's a trick from a demon."